Okay, so yep, I think so. There's one more minute. Let's give one more minute to all the people, and then we'll kind of start from here. So this session is all about GitHub and Git. I think so. This session should have been done beforehand because you guys start using Git and GitHub on the day one. It's not something which comes at midterm. So, and a lot of people have issues with Git and GitHub, some merging issues, something doesn't push it up, something doesn't come down. So all those issues and best practices, which I feel probably I've learned over years of experience, I can share it with you. And this does not guarantee that you won't have any issues, but probably will try to minimize those issues because these are the best practices which people would tend to follow. Okay, so yeah, let's give it a start. And I'll cover this in two goes. One is probably will have somewhat covered out as a theory. So, and the other aspects are to cover it in actual, like practically demonstrated. How does it goes? Okay. So I'm just gonna share my, I'm already sharing my screen and a bit about me. My name is Rohit Dhand. I'm not actually like running it in a presentation mode because I need to allow the other people also whenever they come. So it's easier for me to switch on and off. So just bear with me that. My name is Rohit Dhand and I've been in this tech space for around 25 years. Right now I'm working as a lead solutions architect with Ernst & Young Canada, and mentoring is my passion. I do love teaching and mentoring out, and I remember my times when I was not able to develop even a simple program in 10 days and I was crying, and I see a lot of people crying now also. So the times have not changed, but that's where I think I can come in, guide them out because I've gone through the same phases. And I felt like, why the hell even I'm learning programming at one point of time, way back in 1995. But that's said in that, like, it's all kind of, I would say, inheritary for me. My father being from a teaching line, and kind of I've got it from there. So yeah, that's all about me. And this is all about GitHub workflow and best practices. So what we are going to talk about is today's Git and GitHub. These are two entirely different things. And in order to really jump on to actual practical, we need to understand what exactly that means. So Git is exactly a control versioning system. It just maintains a repository and its change log of whatever we are doing to our files. And Git cannot manage, just excuse me, Git cannot manage the what you call image files because you cannot technically specify what has changed in an image or anything, but anything in the form of a text file or anything, yes, you can definitely manage that, and it works that way. And Git is definitely a local repository. Please mind it. It has nothing to do with GitHub essentially, unless and until we create a link with GitHub, right? So Git is something very separate, local, and GitHub is something very separate, which is a kind of a remote repository, and we'll get back to that. And why we are doing this control version system, because we want to go back to a previous version if something goes wrong, or we are working on multiple features, we are working in a team. So that's what primarily the Git is used for. And Git automatically tracks all the changes made to the files within the folder. So if you initialize a Git within the folder, it automatically tracks all the subfolders and files and anything. And normally you might have seen Git can be initialized either by git init, or you can clone the repository. Normally Lighthouse Labs would let you know, hey, you go to GitHub, clone this repository onto that, and then you start working onto this. Or if you don't want to clone it, you can either use a git init, which I'll showcase in the actual demonstration. So moving on to with the Git, the next thing which is very important is to understand commits. And commit is technically a milestone, like you feel you have done some code, it's a good feature that you have completed, and you just want to commit that milestone. So for example, one commit can be where you have added the code from reading the API or anything. Okay, that can be commit 1, and then commit 2 can be like you change that API reading code to include error handling also. So if there was an error, so you do this. If there was no error, then you continue with that. So it's a kind of a milestones what you have achieved within your project, within the repository. So git commits is essentially like where you feel, okay, this is something I really want. It's good. I have completed. I want to save it. I want to commit it, put it as a milestone. So you can do that. So that's one thing. And now the another thing which comes is, so why GitHub then, right? So if we have a Git, now why it's GitHub? Now GitHub is technically a web-based repository that mimics the same pattern of Git, but it's on the web, not on your local computer. And why would you use then GitHub? So that solves two purposes. So it creates a remote version of the code. So in case something happens to my PC or something like Hayway goes to my Mac or anything, okay, I cannot recover my PC, I've lost my data, but my code is still out there in the remote repository. So that is one of the purpose it solves. The second is we can easily collaborate with multiple people. So let's say somebody is working from Canada, one is working from India, another one is working from Germany. So all of us can collaborate within the remote repository. We can download the local copies and then we can work it in a collaborative way. We can push commits and we can add on to different things. We can create branches. So that's how technically GitHub was introduced. Now, if you see this small diagram, this local Git, which is your like the Git on your local computer, and then the GitHub, which is on a remote repository, they have the similar kind of a branches. So if it has a master branch, it would also have a master branch. Okay, mind it, I'm just saying right now, please do not create any branch directly on GitHub. Do not go to GitHub and change onto any file directly. Never ever do this. You are going to get up into some kind of a mess, which is difficult to resolve. So it's always best to create a single source of truth over here. You work on your local Git and then you just synchronize with the GitHub. It's a one way you do that way, unless and until you have to like clone it, or let's say you want to pull it because somebody else made some changes and you want to get the latest updates. But otherwise, your local Git is a single source of truth. And then the GitHub is just like mimicking the same thing, right? Moving on to the next one, I think so branches, which everybody understands. Branches are like where we want to work on new feature and we don't want to change the main branch, which is your master branch. We just create a separate branch, work onto that, test our code, make sure it works fine. And once it is all good, we have tested it, we are satisfied with that, then we technically merge that branch into the master branch. And it would still be the same. So if your local Git has a master branch and a feature branch, the GitHub, once you synchronize this to the GitHub, it would still have a master branch and a feature branch. Now I have seen so many assistance requests where people would create a branch over here and then start working over here. No, that's not the way. You create your branch onto your local Git. You never create a branch on GitHub. It's always created on here, create it, work on that, and then push it to GitHub so that everyone gets the same image or same version what you have actually created it, right? So that should be the ideal way. And the another common mistake which I have seen, before merging the branch into the master, we must make sure that all the branches from local Git to GitHub are in sync. So it means if I have to merge it, firstly, I'll make sure feature login is actually in sync with the feature login to GitHub, and then master branch is in sync with the master branch to the GitHub. If both branches are in sync, everything looks fine, then I can use this feature branch to merge it in this master branch. And then I can definitely push this one to the GitHub so that my changes are reflected onto GitHub also. So that's technically like the flow we should need to follow. And these are some small best practices with no branch. Like if you don't have a branch, which is not the case, you would have branches because of the complexity of the projects. So what you normally do is you initialize the Git in the local folder, or we can clone the GitHub repo, right? And then you add files to your folder. You start adding to files to your folder. Then you do a commit when you feel you have substantial amount which you have completed. Okay, do a local commit into that, and then add the remote repository to the local Git. This is only one time, right? So if you have not cloned it, like I'll show you how do you initialize it and then attach the repository. Otherwise, if you have cloned it, then that's a separate way. But you would just add the remote repository to your local Git, which is technically Git, and then attaching GitHub to that. And then you just keep on pushing the changes to the GitHub master branch after you commit it. And then you kind of loop it, like you just repeat these steps, except for this one, because you would just need to add it one time. And I'll actually show you how you would do that. And this is a little bit more complex, where you would have branches, because this is exactly you would follow in the real time. So what you do is you follow a few steps which are the same. You initialize the Git in the local folder, or you can clone it. You start adding files to the folder, okay, because it goes into your master branch. Then commit it locally, that's fine. And then add the remote repository. This would also be done one time only if you have not cloned it. And now push the local changes to GitHub master branch. So it means your local branch would be in sync with the master branch on the GitHub. So all looks fine. Now here you actually now start adding complexity. So what you do is, now you create a new branch, which is a feature test. Let's say any another branch which you create that. You start making changes to the feature test, and then you would commit those changes for this particular branch only, right? And that would be local commit. Means a local commit means on your PC, on your Mac, a local commit where you are saving your changes. And once you are done, you feel you have achieved something, then you push those local changes to the GitHub, but to which branch? The feature test branch. Because you were working on the feature test branch, you have locally committed it, now you just want to push it. So this is how you synchronize it. And once it is synchronized, everything is in sync, then only merge the feature test branch to the master branch. Well, I'll showcase it also. So that these are the best practices. We normally have a printout in our offices where new people who join, we just tell them to follow these best practices, but still they are learners, we are humans, we make mistakes. So but if you follow these practices, probably 90% of the cases, your every git merge or push or pull or everything would be good. You won't get into issues. Only 10% of the cases where you didn't follow certain due diligence or somebody didn't guide you properly, those are the issues which you would you need to get it resolved. And mind it, if you get into something, let's say you did something and it created a mess for that, if you are not comfortable to, let's say you don't have the skills to solve it, it's always advisable to talk to your senior or to talk to your, let's say, mentor. He can probably help you to get that thing resolved, rather than messing that thing more up and then getting into more even a messier situation, which we should not, right? So that's always advisable. Even if I'm not, let's say, aware about certain concept and I feel I need a guidance for a specialist out there, yeah, you should talk to that, and he can probably help you out, walk you through, okay, what you made a mistake and how probably you can get out of that. So those are the best practices. Okay, so this is a Git cheat sheet which you normally would use. I'll share this slide deck in the channels also, so don't worry. These are all the commands which you would use 90 to 95% of the cases on the daily basis. This is all like branches, committing, switching, deleting locally, deleting a branch remotely or whatever. So I'll share the slide deck with you, don't worry on that. And this is one of the use case. Before we jump on to the practical exercise, I just want to share one use case where we have a GitHub master and we have a GitHub feature login, 2 branches, and this is our local Git, this is of the GitHub. Now here is a scenario where user A is working on Git feature login. So user A is working on the feature branch and user B is working on the master Git branch. So he's working on this branch. Okay. Now let's take this scenario. So let's say user A stuff is complete because he was working on the Git feature login, like the branch. So firstly, what he does is he add all the files onto that branch. Then he does a commit within the same branch, but on the local PC, right? And then in order to sync his branch with the GitHub branch, he pushes all the changes to the GitHub, but to the feature login branch, so that his branch is exactly in sync with this guy. Now, this master branch, which is technically with the user B because he's still on master, so he won't have those changes, right? So user B is working on the master Git. So he also made a change and locally committed it. And then he has to push the change to the master GitHub in the same way. Now, before merging from user A should switch to the master, because that's something which you need to do, and make a pull request. So see, because user A was working on the feature branch and he did synchronize his repository to the GitHub, but then there are changes on the master GitHub which user B pushed. So before merging or anything, this guy needs to pull those changes, because his repository from here is okay, but his repository over here is not okay. So what he does is user A, who is working on the feature login branch, makes a pull request, get all the things which user B worked on master GitHub. He gets all the thing. So his even master repository is in sync. And then he switches on to master and then merges his branch. So he merges the branch, and then once he merges, he need to push it back to the GitHub master, right? Because when he merges it, always remember, the merging is always done on the local. It is never done on the what you call GitHub. So on your local Git, the merging has been done. But what you need to understand is you need to push those changes, the merge changes, back to this guy, which includes the merge one. So user A then push the branch master to the GitHub. That's fine. And then user A, because he has done the merging, pushed it. So user A would tell user B, hey, I have merged the branch, push it to the master hub. Please kindly make a pull request. So when user B makes a pull request over here, he would get the feature branch merged within the master branch that was done by user A within his local PC also. So that's technically the flow which we need to follow, right? This is one of the use case what I'm trying to show it. And normally what happens in a teamwork is you normally have a dev lead who acts as a coordinator within the team to make sure that everybody has pulled in, or they need to push their branches, or somebody has merged it. So when you guys are working within your project, let's say your midterm project, I would strongly recommend to appoint or nominate one guy from your team as a lead person who knows which person has worked on which branch, whether he has merged it or not, he has synchronized it or not, and he can act as a coordinator to ask other people to make a pull or a push request or whatever, right? Based upon the scope what we are, right? So that's very much essential. Normally the dev lead does in a real-time environment. Let's go on to another, which is a more case. People ask me that if one guy is working on, let's say, there's only one branch, but all the three people, A, B, C, they are working on, let's say, login.js. No, you can never allow this, right? You cannot allow three people at the same time working on a same file called as login.js. No, even two people not. I won't really suggest that. It would create so many issues for you. One person on one file, they may belong to a same repository. That's not a problem. But user A has been tasked on login. User B can be given a register.js. User C is working on home.js. Let's say there is another file which you're working. That's fine. But you can never allow three guys working on the same branch and on the same file. Never. Please never ever do it. All three guys on three different files. So based upon this, let's say this is another scenario before we jump on to the practical one. User A is working on login, B is working on register.js, and user C is working on home.js. And because this is another use case where we are not adding up another repository. So what we can do over here is, if we go by the best practices, so this is the best practice. Let's say the assumption is user A completes. So it means he was working on login.js. So he has completed it. So the best practice is he would do a local commit user A and then push it to the GitHub, right? Okay, makes sense. Now, because he has pushed it to the GitHub, so user A who has completed his job on login.js, he just asks user B and C. Those guys are working on two different files, right? But he tells them that I have completed my work on login.js. I have pushed it to master. Please pull it. So because B and C, they don't have this login.js changes which user A has worked, right? So he would just let them know, right? Now, assuming user C has also completed, right? Now, the important thing, and this is one of the very, I would say I have handled many assistance requests on that. If user C wants to pull the changes that were made by user A, so he cannot pull before he locally saves and commits his changes, right? Because user C is working on home.js, and on the ask of user A, hey, login is complete, you pull it. So when user C pulls the login.js, the Git is very intelligent. It would say, you have your changes in your home.js. What do you want to do with that? You want to save it, you want to do it. So the best practice is, like, he cannot pull before he saves his local changes. So what he does is, user C, he commits his local changes, like saves it, commits it, and then pull it, right? So what he would get is, he would get the changes of A, which was done in login.js, onto here. Now, user C would have the login.js, which is perfectly fine, worked with, and he has his changes which he made in home.js, but they are not pushed back to the GitHub. So user C pushes back to GitHub and then sends an email to user A and user B that he has made these changes, right? And pushed it to the GitHub. Now for user A, because he already had all the changes, he pushed it, he just need a pull request because he just need to get the home.js, the changes which user C worked, but B is in a different state. He is already working on that. For user A, it is only pull, which I mentioned. Yep, that's a simple one because he doesn't have any local changes to save. But for user B, because he's working on register.js, so what he would do is he would make those changes locally, commit it, and then pulls the master branch. So B would get the login.js from A, the home.js from C, and now his file register.js is with him. So he has these three files. User B syncs again, pushes back to GitHub. Now user A and user C just needs one pull request because their local changes are all in sync. They don't have anything to commit. So they just need a pull. So they would get the register.js, which user B worked and completed. He was the last one to complete to get those changes over here. So it's more likely, I would say, emphasize a coordinated effort with certain due diligence when you do this in order to make sure that you kind of nail it and you are doing all the things in a very right way, right? Okay, that's a lot of theory and everything. Let's go practically and see it how we can delve into that. Okay, any questions or any queries? I'm sorry, I didn't ask that. Or I'm good to go. Okay, I'll assume everything looks fine. Let's go to the practical stuff. Okay, let's say I have a folder which is a GitHub folder. It's just an empty folder, nothing here, and I'll just go on to GitHub. Let's open up GitHub. You cannot see much repositories in me. I don't use GitHub. I use Azure DevOps, so we don't have that. Let's create a repository over here. Let's say Git demo. I'll just try to name that. Okay, it's a public repository, create repository. That's fine. Looks good to me. So there is a repository out over here. So I created a GitHub repository. Right now, this repository and this folder has nothing to do with each other. They are independent of each other unless and until we do something about it. Okay. So as per our stuff, the first thing what we need to do over here is I'll just use a local git. We are not working right now with GitHub, just a local git. I didn't clone it. I didn't do it because you have been in tune towards cloning. So I just do a git init, right? When I use a git init, okay, it would initialize a local git repository in my folder. So which it does with the help of a .git folder. It created that, and yes, it looks good. I have a git repository over here. I'll just increase the size in case. And I don't have any files or folders over here. Okay, let's create one. What I'll do is I'll just try to create, let's say, new file. Okay, sorry. Okay, let me just say console.log, and I would say this is my first file. Okay, let's say that's all. I'll try to save it. It was in the GitHub Git demo, and I'll say first.js, right? I'll save it. Okay, I'll save this. I'll just close this editor and open up my folder, which is GitHub demo. Okay, select folder. So that's my GitHub, so that I can switch between repositories. It has only one file, which makes sense, looks good. Okay, now when I say dir, I get one file, that is first.js, which I completed it. There is one very important command, and I use it 90% of the cases, even for assistance request or anything, in order to see where we are right now, and that is get status. I'll just do a get status. So it just lets me know, hey, I'm on branch master, no commits yet. Okay, there is an untracked file. So the untracked files are always represented by red color. There's a first.js. Okay, what I need to do is I just say first.js, or you use star or dot or whatever. I just add it. Okay, now when you add it, just run that command again, get status. When you do that, now it says on branch master, no commits yet, but changes to be committed. So it says, yes, I have a file which I'm tracking, but you have not locally committed it. Do you want to commit it? Okay, I say get commit -m added my first file, right? That's all. Press enter. Okay, this is done. My first commit has been done, but it is still on my local Git. It has nothing to do with my GitHub. Even if you refresh this, it has nothing to do with this because I have not tied up this repository with my local Git, right? Now I go back. So this is the case. Check your directory. It is still there. Okay, git status. Now do a git status. It says on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. It means whatever the changes I actually initiated, they have been tracked, they have been committed. Git has no more further changes to commit or to add or doing anything. Working tree is complete, which looks fine. It should be the ideal situation. Now, what we need to do with this, we need to use this Git demo, the local Git, and attach it to this GitHub, okay? Because we want a remote repository. Let's say my PC, let's say it goes hayway, I lost all the code or anything. So what I can do is I can go back to GitHub and I can get my code from here. Okay, so now over here, if you see, it does mention you few things over here, right? What you are done, but I'm just interested in this line because here I'm adding a remote repository, right? So I'll copy that. I'll go back, paste it out here, right? Press enter, looks fine. Okay, now if I say git status, yes, it would still say to me, because your local stuff is all good, everything is clean, but so there's nothing to be traced or anything, but we know that I have not pushed these changes to the GitHub. Now, because my remote repository is attached to my local repository, I can just say origin master. So I'm saying, please push the local repository of GitHub, the master branch, to a remote repository of GitHub to the master branch, right? And then I say, press enter. Okay, it all looks good. It wrote certain objects, gave me a message to GitHub, this new branch, master and master. Now, when we created this, there was nothing. This was the only case. Now, if you refresh it, boom, you get your master branch, you get the first.js. Now, I'm again repeating it. Never ever create a branch on here. Never ever change any file, like open this file and start changing, editing this file. Never ever do this. You are going to get into a messier situation, right? So your single source of truth is my GitHub demo, right? This is the single source of truth. Whatever I'm doing, I'm doing it over here. Okay. Now what we do is, let's add another file. Okay. Go back and let's say create a new file, and we'll say console.log. This is my second file added to the master branch. Okay. I save this in the same GitHub demo, and I'll just use it as a JavaScript. I name it as second.js. Save it. Looks fine. It's saved. Go back. dir. So I have two files. Now the same command which I'll always run, get status. Okay. So it shows me I'm still on branch master. There is one untracked file, which is second.js, which is added because we never touched again first.js. It all looks good. So I need to track this. So I'll say git add second.js. And then if I say git status again, so it says it changes the color because I have staged that file to make a commit. I feel it looks good. I can do a commit. So what I do is commit, let's say added second file into the repo, right? Press enter. So this is again a local commit. It has nothing to do with the GitHub right now because I have never pushed it. So even if you refresh it, you refresh this, you don't have second.js. Okay, now because you have the second.js locally committed, everything is fine. Now you just need to push it to the origin master, that is GitHub. Push that, press enter, everything looks fine. Give you a message. Let's go back, come out over here, see this. Yes, it looks good. So you got a second file, right? So that's like adding a simple one, like we added one file, we add another files, we add folders to that. But now let's say you just want to add a branch. Okay, that's like adding more complexity into it. So now what we need to do is we just go over here. So we say get minus checkout minus B, and let's say feature login, let's say something like this. Okay, so it says switched to a new branch feature login, right? Now remember this branch has been created on your local Git. It has nothing to do right now with this branch or with your GitHub. So even if you refresh this don't have it, right? And there is no necessity to create a branch over here. Sometimes people start creating branches over here. No, never ever create a branch over here. Your single source of truth is this. Okay, so now you check out this branch. Okay, we'll go back. And now what we'll do is we'll add, let's say I'll add one thing over here. This is purely in the feature login branch only, right? I'll save it and then I'll go back. Now, if you do a git status over here, so now if you see on branch feature login, because we created a branch, so it automatically shifts you to that branch. And then it says this particular file has been modified because you started working on a new branch, you started adding content to that, second.js. Okay, I feel I've done that, I've completed it. So I'll use a commit -m, created a new branch and added a line into second.js. I just give this message. Okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't add that. I'm sorry. So git add second.js. I need to add that file. Okay. Get status, you can check again, which looks fine, modified. It shows in green color. And now we can just do a git commit, created a new branch and added a line into second.js. Press that enter, looks fine. Git status. So it says now on branch feature login, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Okay, which makes sense. So if I say git checkout master, which I switch to master now, go back to this. So see, when I switch to master, the master second.js does not have that line, right? It's automatic because I've opened that folder. It's automatically switching. So that does not contain that line. Okay. Now if I switch it back, git checkout feature / login, press enter. I switched on to that, go back to this, and immediately that line pops up, right? So this is how the branches are still working, but we have not merged our branch, or in fact, we have even not pushed this branch onto GitHub. Now, what we'll do is we'll just use a push command to see whether it works or not. So I'll do a git status again. So I'm on the feature login branch, which looks fine. My everything local commits are all perfectly fine. Now I want to push this to the GitHub so that they are all in sync. And if I go back to GitHub, I refresh it, I don't have any another branches. There is only a master branch, right? And if you see the second.js, it contains only one line, right? So we are still on the same one. Now what I need to do is, because I've already done, so I'll say origin, and I want to specify the branch, that is login branch. So git push origin feature login branch. I press enter, it starts pushing out the things. So it says remote, create a pull request for feature login GitHub by visiting this. Okay, if you want, but we have that because this is for the other guys, but we have already done, and they have created a new branch, which looks fine. Let's go back, check this out, refresh this. So feature login is there, right? You already have that. Make sense? Okay. Now, the another thing which is very important is, because you already created it, so the last thing, because once you create your branch, you need to now push it back to the, let's say the GitHub. So the first thing, I'm on this branch, I'll check the status, on branch feature login, everything looks fine, nothing to complete. Then I'll go on to checkout master, and then I'll say git status again. So on branch master, nothing to commit, everything looks fine. Now I can say git merge with feature / login. Now once I do that, everything looks fine because all my branches were perfectly in sync. Everything looked fine. It all looked good. If I do a git status on branch master, now the only thing which I need to do is, because I made a merge onto local, I would just use to push it to the GitHub. Push that, looks good. It's pushed around, go back, refresh this. So my master, and I have a feature. If you see the master, let's say go back to the, we are in the master, and there was a file change which we did in second.js. So it has that particular one, and there was a feature which we have it over here, and it has, let's say, this one. And then let's say if we just switch on to git checkout, let's say feature, check, we are on the master. Okay, I'm sorry. And we can just check it out. Yeah. So we are on the master. This is first, this second, And in case we go to git checkout feature slash login, yep, so you switched it, but the things would remain same because our feature branch is perfectly merged with the master. So they are reflecting essentially the same thing, no major changes. So essentially it would still be the all looks good, right? This is how things would go. And normally, I can let you know by my experience, not only with Lighthouse Labs, where I handle assistance requests, but with so many other outside projects or the job which I do, that these are essentially the problems which people tend to behave it. Now, one of the most important things which I want to let you know, because you guys are going to work in a group. So what happens is, so let's say there is a group with, let's say, Rohit, there's another guy, let's say Andy, and there's another guy, let's say Fraser, for example, right? We are three guys and we are working on a midterm project. Now, the first thing what you need to make sure is that somebody out of you, it can be anyone, like nothing is going to be, nobody is going to lose anything. So let's say we choose Andy. Andy would be creating an actual GitHub repository, right? So this repository would be actually lying on Andy's GitHub account because we nominated him, right? So all people would be actually pulling and push to this repository, right? Of course, all the three guys, they have a local copy with them also, right? Because they have a local copy, and this belong to Andy. So it is perfectly fine because you are not working for an organization where they give you a common repository where everyone works on that. Here you select one of them. Andy creates a GitHub actual repository on his account, okay? And all of three us are working and collaborating on that. Now what happens is, once the project is finished, Andy already has all the repo branch on his account because he actually used his account. So his account is already updated. So what you can do for Rohit and for Fraser, because they have their local copies of the project, they don't have to their GitHub, so they can copy the project into a separate folder, right? And attach a new GitHub repository from their accounts and push it to their GitHub. Okay, so that's how you would do it because you already have a local copy somewhere. So you just copy those files, you can remove that repository or initiate a new one or put it into a separate folder. And let's say if you want to showcase it in your GitHub repository, then you create a GitHub repository and attach it the way I showed it to you and just make a push request. That's all. You just push that local into the GitHub so that your midterm project is available in your GitHub account rather than you are referring to Andy's account. So that's the only case. But when you go to the real world, the organization has their own GitHub repositories. You'll be working on a repository which the repository doesn't belong to any one of you. The repository belongs to the organization. So that's how it was. Okay, well, that's all from my side, guys. I hope this makes sense and kind of gives you more clarity into Git and GitHub, because this is one thing which you are not going to leave. It is going to come up again and again at every, I would say, interval of your career. So let me know if you have any questions or anything, and I'll definitely share this slide deck and as well as the recording once it is done and uploaded on the Slack channel. Any questions or any queries, please let me know.
Hi.
Hi.
Just have a question about first the last point where you copy your folders, you copy your files into like your own file and then push it onto your own GitHub.
Yes.
With that, would you be able to still see all the commit histories
Yes. So if you want to see all your commits, that is one issue which you would face. Of course, those commits won't be visible in that repository because you would be copying those files and creating that. But otherwise, if you want to really go that all those commits or anything, there is a way around which is beyond the scope over here. I cannot discuss it in that particular framework of time. But you could do that. But yes, that's a very valid point. You won't see your if you just copy your content and point it towards another one, you would lose those commits or anything which you did in the actual repository. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, I also have another question.
Sure.
I typically see like people using for pushing like git push origin master,
Yeah.
but sometimes I don't see it when they like using the origin keyword when talking about it when like accessing branches.
Right.
So I'm just kind of confused about like what that origin
Uh,
keyword is
that,
actually
uh,
doing.
the origin actually refers to the remote repository and then the repo name, which normally comes along with the GitHub. But if you don't specify, let's say, yes, git push or git, let's say, push the normal one, you don't specify though, that would still work because you are pushing it to a remote repository. You are not doing a local commit. So that's why it works both ways. But for me, I have always a habit of using writing those commands in full. Why I do so? Because it just kinds of reiterates in my mind, okay, what I'm trying to do, I'm not doing something, like I'm missing something or I'm not going hayway. So even if you're doing that way, that works perfectly fine. But the origin and that definitely refers to your GitHub repo as well as the branch name, what you're pushing to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, any other question? Hope this definitely gives you a better insight. I'm not saying you guys don't know Git or GitHub, but the kind of the problems or ARs what I see. I hope once you follow these practices, you will definitely reduce out all your issues, and they won't really go away. Of course, 100% is never feasible, but you would be able to reduce it to a drastic level, I would say. Like I have people like junior developers or even developers who join. We actually paste these give these guidelines to all those developers. But yes, we are all humans. We do commit mistakes. Everyone can, even after like so much of experience, you sometimes do commit a mistake, so that's fine. But the only thing is, if you commit a mistake, do let your senior know. He can help you out in a better way rather than you trying to kind of solve it and get into a more messier situation. So let's not do that way, right? I'll give you one example where one of my developers, I was eating lunch in India and I was in my office, and one of my developers, he came and he was asking like, should I come? And I asked him, okay, come inside. And he was just standing and was not speaking. I said like, what happened? How can I help you? And he didn't utter a word. And then after 15 minutes, then I left my food and I asked him like, what you have done? You have done something? He said, I deleted the data. I said, okay, what you deleted? I said, he told me he deleted the whole data for the attendance of 25,000 students, more than 20 million records he deleted from production records, right? So he fired that query, and the whole records were gone. And I could immediately, because my PA, she came and she said like, sir, people are not able to view their attendance because the attendance records are gone, right, from the production system. So I just like, firstly I was very furious, but then I asked him, okay, let me know, when did you fire that query? So we took all the details from him. He kind of let us know, okay, this is the time when he actually fired. And like, then we close the website, we put up, we'll be back soon again with all the data. And then after like 2.5 hours, we actually recovered that data. That's what we call it as a point in recovery. Point in recovery is a kind of a concept where you can recover it to a point in time. Let's say 12:28 p.m. you want to recover the data, you can recover it. We recovered it 2.5 hours, and after that and then it was a kind of a opportunity for me to learn, because he was one guy where we normally don't give the rights to execute delete queries or anything, and he was not a fresher, he was a 5-year experienced guy, right? So he had all the rights and everything. If he was a fresher, he would have never got those rights to delete data from those production tables. But he was a 5 years old experienced guy. He accidentally fired that query, And then, but he came along, he helped us in solving that. And yeah, so these things happen. Like we normally take systems very granted. Systems, they don't work in a very simplistic way. Like we just fire an email, say, oh, email is gone, I've sent you an email. How does Gmail works, or how do they do it? You never even bothered about it, right? If I tell you, like if I say somebody types a message like hello, okay, it's a very simple thing. I typed it over here, it goes on to here. Now if I translate this, how it goes into TCP/IP, how it converts into packets, how it converts into bytes, how it actually translated into fiber optics and then sent it to DNS and then sent into, again converted the other way around on a OSI model, it will take like 6 months class. I can demonstrate whole like how this hello message has gone to you, right? If you really want to understand that. And one time my wife asked me, I started explaining, and after 15 minutes she said, I don't want to understand this. I send a hello message, it goes. That's fine. That's what I want, right? So it all depends who is actually using the system. So yeah, but that's all. If you have ever committed a mistake, don't be afraid about that. I do commit mistakes even today also, even 25 years of experience. So that happens. Shit happens. Just simple thing. Shit happens. So it's okay. Just accept it and help the other people to help you out rather than getting into more messier situation, right? Okay, guys. Well, thank you for your time. Really good to talk to you, and I hope this session is going to be helpful to you. I'll share all the slide deck with you as well as the recording of this once it gets uploaded on the video on your channel. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
If working with a group, is usually branch name is a person's name or folder and file name, or what is the best choice?
The best choice would be, Hokura, in this case would be your feature, what you are normally working. That is normally the best choice. So if you are given, let's say, a new feature where you are working on login and registration, I would tend to say it is login or register branch. That would be a more appropriate name because you worked on that feature. And if somebody is working on, let's say, payment gateway, you are implementing a payment gateway with credit card or anything, it's better to name it as a payment gateway because that's the feature you are working. So it's always good on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And if the finish the project, all branches always delete?
No. Always keep it. You can delete your branches. That's fine.
Okay.
But I would always suggest you to keep those branches because it's a single source of truth for you, right? How many branches you created, which files you worked, when you merged. So you have all the record. You don't want to delete your record, right?
Okay.
So you should always keep it, right? Yeah.
If I work in the one branch,
right,
and you finish that task, and after that somebody find my bug to fixing, the time is my group as a B person to using my branch, or he make the new branch?
No. So yeah, that's a very, very good question you asked. So if, let's say, you worked on a branch and it is completed, and let's say somebody else found a bug in your branch, so he would work on your branch, fix that bug, test it, and then once it is tested, then again merge it after committing it that this bug was fixed, right? So you never create another branch for a bug. No, you just fix it within the same branch. So that's why branches are always kept. You never delete your branches.
Okay. And if I'd like to fix somebody's branch, that time to same like a merge from the master to that old file. After that, still continue.
No. So okay. Let me share my screen. I'll let me understand what you are asking. I'll try to explain it to you. Just give me a second. Let me share my screen. We might actually have less time, but I'll still try to kind of fix. So if, let's say, there was a branch, right? So let's say there is a branch, let's say B, and there is a bug, right? So the person, let's say Andy, works on that branch. He fixes that, and then after the fixation, this is merged with the master. That's what you should do.
Yeah. So Andy finished this bug.
Yep.
And in the future, still have a different bug.
Right.
Like a pressure to
Right.
working this bug.
Right.
Me at that time to we need to the merge from the master or still continue the.
Oh no,
file?
you can still continue with your branch B because
Okay.
that branch was already merged with the master, so you have the same thing in both the cases. Yeah, so you can
So-
work on the branch bug. Yeah.
Always this branch. Is
Yes.
Okay.
Because the merging always help you to keep your branches and master synchronized. Once it is merged, you'll get the same thing on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, no worries. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
fine.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.